Utilization of Blockchain in iGaming.
Well, welcome to the session. It's blockchain in gaming. Let me start by introducing our panelists and myself, and then we can kick off with some content. Why don't you just give an intro about yourself and your business? Yeah, Sami?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sami Sipilä, CEO of Housemasters. We are basically looking to put the idle money in gaming to work. So we are looking for custody angle of the gaming that we see that like blockchain can enable in a completely different way.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you again, both of you, for having me. My name is Sigmund. Two main companies we have to focus on. First of all, being NFT Technologies. I'm a strategic advisor. We're one of the first publicly traded NFT companies in this space. So we actually just listed on the Neo exchange a few weeks ago, now under ticker NFT. We're basically focusing on more of the investment aspect, the more of the partnership aspect of how we're able to really bring value to projects that are in the space, bring value to companies that might be looking to expand into the space, and be able to really provide them with that utility, with resources, so forth. Second company, that first one being based in Vancouver. The second company being IBC Group, International Blockchain Consulting, based out of Dubai. Basically with IBC, what we're doing is, again, similar, is focusing on that investment marketing aspect. How can we basically help projects in the space? So we've worked with a handful of projects in the last 9 months, around, I think, 220 plus investments and over 30 to 40 marketing partnerships as well. We're looking to see where we can provide value and also bring projects from that Web 2 space into Web 3, especially in the gaming space specifically.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sigmund. I got to say, you've got a great panel here. I know IBC Group very well. I've worked with Mario over a number of years in different projects, and I invested with their ICO fund. So fantastic penetration into the crypto space, especially the early stage crypto space. And then with the decentralization and utilization of treasury funds, absolutely what decentralization is about what the blockchain stuff's about. What we do at Funtoken, I'm Adriaan Brink, so I haven't introduced myself. Adriaan Brink, I'm the CEO of Funtoken. We're the largest cryptocurrency for gambling in the world. We're about $100 million market cap right now. And what we're aiming to do is use blockchain to decentralize the treasury funds. So very similar to what you're doing. You're looking at using them. We're looking at how the individuals who own their money can keep a hold of that. And it's an interesting path, because at the very simplest level, you say, well, instead of depositing funds at a casino and leaving them there, deposit them, play with them, take them out again when you finish playing. So you get this in and out money flow. And then going further on from there, we look at on-chain sports betting, on-chain casino games, and so on. So that for me is fundamentally where blockchain and gambling can coexist. We're not talking about crypto here. This is not a crypto talk. It's not about taking Bitcoin and depositing it in play in a casino. That's old hats, that's payment technology. We're talking about actually using blockchain in a useful way in a gambling operation. At Fun, what we've done is developed a wallet system and a token that is free to move around. We absorb all the gas fees on the network, and it's on a performant network to make it possible for users to move their money and not penalize the operators. So there's zero transaction fees for operators, both in and out, and there's zero transaction fees for users. And we trialed this off-chain over the last 6 months with our acquisition site, which is Free Bitcoin, and one of our casinos, Dplay Casino, and we gave the users the ability to do this off-chain. And what we found is that users like to put a bit of money in, play for a bit, and take it out again. They don't want to leave it in the casino, and that's really fundamentally the first stage of decentralizing gaming, giving the users control over their own money and custody over their own money, ownership of their own money. Taking that a step further, of course, instead of going in and depositing and playing and taking it out again, how do users actually play games with the money without the casino ever having the money? Because in a casino game, if you think about it, a user will stake some money. The casino will essentially lay that stake. So the casino will say, okay, you want to play a slot machine, I'll absorb the risk if you win. and I'll take your money if you lose. So essentially, both parties are setting aside some funds to play a game or take a bet or whatever. If that process can be brought onto blockchain, we end up in a custodyless system, if that's a word. Is it a word? I don't know. So really, that's where I see things going. I think it's very exciting, and I think it kind of, in a way, parallels into what you're doing with the custody side of it.
Definitely, and I love what you guys are doing. Our angle is more to actually educate people to benefits of blockchain. So we're actually looking to accept fiat deposits and incentivize the fiat players, since more than 90% of the money is still in iGaming is in fiat. So we want to educate the players, like, please go ahead and make a deposit in fiat, but once you've done it, look, if you now start, for example, staking in blockchain side, you'll receive massive benefits just for the staking plus other benefits. For operators, obviously, you cut down the payment service fees. It's a big benefit. You increase the player lifetime value. The players are now receiving yields for their assets, actually. So your LTV grows, and because the players are actually depositing money, and when we compare, for example, the delta in the fiat and crypto interest, for stable coins, we're able to pay up to 10%. In Europe or in North America, you don't get 10% interest, obviously. So we expect that the churn will decrease as well.
So you're talking about players, let's say, depositing $100 at a casino, they play for a bit, they got $80 left, and then they opt to stake that $80 and earn a yield while it sits there. Is that right?
Exactly. So say that a player, for example, deposits using a credit card and he plays a bit, then the player will receive a message like, hey, how about switching your fiat to crypto and staking it? You will receive free spins, whatever benefits the casino wants to offer. It is very much in the casinos and operators' interest, obviously, provide benefits to players who are using a crypto instead of fiat. And now you start to generate yield plus earn other benefits up to the operator, how much they value actually the customer to be switching to crypto. So we are talking about we expect that the LTV of players will increase more than 10%. Your churn will reduce, and obviously you're going to save a massive amount of money in the payment service provider cost as well.
Well, it's not just that, because while those players' funds are locked up in an account, say, as a credit to the player, they're not being used. The operator can't actually use those funds. They're in treasury funds. So while it's nice to have money in a bank, actually the operator has to absorb the risk with their own operating funds rather than with those players' funds. So you're essentially releasing the treasury funds for the operator to use as a lay side, on the lay side. Yeah.
That is exactly right.
Makes a lot of sense to me. What do you think, Sigmund?
I think you hit it right on the head. It's the first thing is all about trust, right? You know, when you're in this space, especially iGaming, the question is, how can you really increase the trust that you have between all the different entities, whether that be a player to player, right, with the system that now I know you guys are working on integrating, or whether that be the casino and the player. And I think that that's the first step, having that trust system, because of where the capital is stored. Now, the second part of it, which you pointed out really well, is how do you then use that capital, right, or that money, and how do you then reward them, you know, for it? Because again, people don't want the money to be in the hands of the casinos. Right? It's just human psychology. Even when they're playing games, you know, whenever they lose, there's always a scapegoat or reason for why they lost. And that comes back to blockchain just generally being so critical in this day and age, in this industry, because what it does is it really allows for the highest level of entertainment for the player, for the casino, and that trust is going to be at the epicenter and core of really what this industry is.
How important is that trust issue? I mean, I often hear people talking about blockchain, how it can add transparency and then add truly randomness and the RNGs and so on. But I wonder, how important is that for the player? Do they really care?
That's a great question. Now, in terms of like random numbers versus pseudo numbers, I don't think really many people are going to care or frankly know what that is. Being said, when you look at pseudo random number generators, those are near random, right? They're very close to random. They're not perfectly random, but most people aren't going to be focused on that. But in order to achieve mass adoption, where this industry becomes 100 billion, 500 billion, $1 trillion, then you're going to have to not look at maybe, you know, all the code behind it, but rather how is the user interface? How is the system? What is the process? That's what's going to matter, right? No one's going to care about the math behind it, but they're going to care, where's my money held? Is it held by me? Is it held by a central entity? Is it held by the casino? Hopefully not. That's going to become important because otherwise we won't reach this mass adoption in the space.
So you're talking about custody of funds again?
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's something that we tackled with Better Betting 4 years ago. We were live for the last 3 years until Ethereum's gas fees killed the project. And that was with on-chain betting. So in that situation, we had a smart contracts, which essentially did everything from placing, laying, and resulting in bets on-chain. And those funds never left the players' or the layers' wallets until a bet was resulted. So essentially, when a player would take a bet, their stake will be escrowed within their own wallet. It's still in their wallet, still owned by them, but they can't access it. So it's in no man's land in a way. It's like what I call clever money. Because the layer accepting that bet would have their lay side escrowed from their wallets. And that's a much more complex operation because, of course, with the lay, you can take into account market level laying and risk management. But the bottom line is that on-chain and escrow pools, you have the funds, all the funds, to resolve the outcome of that sports bet. Now that presents a lot of interesting scenarios. Firstly, the players are protected by the system. The system essentially makes it impossible for someone else to steal the money. But secondly, there's a regulatory issue. Is this a sports book? And if it's a sports book, where is it? And where is it regulated? Is it regulated on the lay side or on the player side, or is it regulated in no man's land? I was challenged in Estonian courts 4 years ago when we launched Better Betting, for operating an illegal gambling site. We were based in Estonia. And I went to court and I fought the case that the bet happened on Ethereum and that even if we didn't exist, those smart contracts would forever continue to exist and could continue placing and settling bets with no intervention from us. And on that basis, we were not an operator. We held no custody of funds. We took no rev share out of it. We fulfilled none of the criteria to be an operator. And I won the case in the courts. But that does present a really interesting argument because it really taken to the nth degree. It says to the regulators out there, guys, we've got to something we can't regulate. What the hell are we going to do about it? And regulators don't like that. So I don't know where that's going to go in the future. Meanwhile, of course, the smart contracts, once you put them out there, they never go away. So, hey, maybe it's a ship that sails and it carries on sailing by itself. I don't know. Of course, that was anonymous. What about anonymity? How does that fit into this picture? Do you see it as an issue or a challenge or a benefit or what?
From my perspective, it's definitely a benefit. So I'm pro-liberation when it comes to gaming, obviously, like I think many other people here are as well. We believe that like blockchain enablement will drive eventually will result in complete anonymity in the iGaming space. It will be extremely difficult to fight against that in the long term. So you can add regulation on top, but when you are operating on chain, you are able to provide actually total anonymity to your players as well.
Which is a regulator's nightmare. Do I get the impression that we're forming regulators' nightmares here? What are your views on anonymity?
So I think the best way to answer this question is to start with just traditional casinos, right? Just brick and mortar. Anonymity is, period, end of sentence, the most dangerous thing to those casinos. Reason being is AML, right? Money laundering we see, as well as just them not knowing who is winning, right? You can come into a casino, you can put $1,000 in a machine, get $1,000 of chips. You can, pretend to play around them. You can then basically...
Which basically happens in casinos on the ground today.
Exactly. Now, the key with blockchain is we have anonymity, but the crux is that we also have the ability for regulators to have an eye on it, which I know there's still a massive debate about just in general in blockchain. But the critical thing is that you have the security, right, of the capital, right, when someone puts it in, so you have that trust that's generated. You then have the anonymity because people, they don't want the public knowing, who they are, where they're
their
playing.
wife.
Exactly, right? So that's going to be a critical factor. Like when you walk into a casino, just generally, that casino's localized, right? Only people you're going to encounter are the people in that city. But with blockchain, if that was, let's say, just somehow public information who you were, that's now global, right? Everyone can see your every move. So that blockchain, masking that identity in terms of the anonymity is critical. But for accounting purposes and regulatory purposes, right, the government can figure out who you are if they want. That's why we have KYC. That's why we have AML. And as I'm sure you know, it's in different stages, right? If you're playing with $500, $700, your KYC is very minimal. Your first name, your last name, maybe an address, and that's it. And then if you're playing with much more, significant amounts, then that is going to increase respectively, which is exactly how it should be given the space, the dynamics that we have.
So what we did with Fun, with our X-Fun wallet, which is a wallet on the mobile phone, is we incorporated registration data and KYC data, delegated KYC, within the wallet. So the player can actually register themselves on their wallet, on their phone, that they own the data. It's sitting on the phone. It's just in a convenient format. Have that data verified by an independent third-party company, such as W12, for example, who will then tick that data matches the passport and the proof of address and all that stuff. But that data is still sitting on the player's phone. So the player can then go to the casino and scan a QR code and play. And the casino may elect to say, I need to know that you're over 18 and that you're not in the United States of America. And the wallet can say that is true without saying who the player is. Or the casino can say, my regulations require me to have your full name and address and the full KYC information, in which case the individual can push a button and share that information with the casino. So you have a sort of a hybrid model, and it's up to the operator how much data they want or need to have from the player. Where that goes in the future will depend on the degree to which regulators can get their head around it. I don't think it is actually a bad thing for individuals to control their own data. I think the world is waking up to the fact that Google and Facebook have scraped everybody's data, and there's a bit of an anti-data thing going on. But the operators have to comply with regulators, and the regulators say, if you don't know who the guy is, how do you know he's not in America, for example, if you're not licensed in America? Or how do you know he's over 18? Core question. Or how do you know these 20 people aren't just one guy laundering his money? And these are questions that have to be addressed by blockchain. We can't just ignore them and say, well, we're in a nice fun land of nowhere land. The hell with the regulators? So we have to find that mix. What are your thoughts on that?
I obviously fully agree. So you have to set certain limits, and I think since we are moving towards really globalized environment through blockchain, because it's going to be extremely difficult to artificially block players based on their location, for example, in the future. It is already basically impossible. People can use VPN, etc., in online gaming. So
well, that's why you have KYC.
Exactly. But going further, even the KYC is commonly misused. So there are massive amounts of still fraud happening in that space. So my opinion is that now going on chain, you can actually track big accounts in way more efficient manner. So let's say that if a private person wants to play in private, that's going to be fairly easy and it shouldn't be tracked. But you will be able through on chains track way easier. So say organized operations where you're actually trying to cycle money.
Well, yes and no. I mean, there's ways around it, as you probably know. Mixers and so on.
You can obviously use mixers, but you can even nowadays trace those. So it is a raise in technology, obviously, and very hard to predict where we are heading at the moment.
I'm going to open up for questions from the audience. We've got 5 minutes left, and everyone else will overrun, so we're going to just be on time. Anyone have any questions out there? Clearly, we inspired you all. Or we answered all the questions. All right, well, I think I'll just wrap it up to saying thank you to all for being here, If you have any questions, of course, we're available afterward, but it's always more fun to have the questions in a format here so others can share the answers, share with the results. So if you have anything, you've got another minute or so to raise your hands. Otherwise, I'll recap by just saying I think we're in an incredibly exciting space. I think blockchain is now where the internet was in 96, 97, and I was around then. I ran a lottery in Liechtenstein in those days. We were in the days of dial-up modems and Geek Squad, and if you weren't a techie, you couldn't use it. That's going to change. Users are going to become more and more comfortable. The usability is going to improve to the extent that eventually you don't even know there's a blockchain behind it. And when we get to that nirvana, and it's not a long way away now, I don't think, what you're going to see is an explosion similar to what you saw on the internet in the 97, 98, 99, where suddenly everything went bang. And believe me, gambling was front and center of that. Gambling was by far the biggest e-commerce operation in those days, and I expect that to be the case now with the blockchain scenario. That would be my wrap up. Why don't you guys wrap up?
All right, thank you, Adriaan. Well, my wrap up is pretty much pointing out that at the moment there is, based on our estimate, 80 to 120 billion dollars on iGaming accounts sitting idle, and that's a whole lot of money, and it's in control of our operators at the moment. So either we should go towards the way that you're suggesting, give the custody completely to the players, or then my approach that at least give them some benefit out of you holding it.
I think the space is really big right now, but I think it's going to become a lot bigger in the next 5 and 10 years. You know, some estimates put it in the many hundreds of billions. And with that, and the coming of it becoming such an incredibly large industry, especially online, we're going to really see at the epicenter of everything being player experience. And that player experience, I believe, will mostly unilaterally rest in trust. And as we talked about today, that trust, I think, is built on 4 key pillars. It's the security of user data and information, the security, right, and time-stamped, impermeable blockchain, as well as the kind of user fees that we talked about, the custody of capital, and then lastly, anonymity, which is going to play a massive role. So with that, I think the space is definitely evolving. I mean, that's what we're doing at IBC. We're helping bring Web 2 companies into Web 3. We're helping make investments. So, I'm definitely very eager if anyone does have a project or a company in that space, or, with some kind of other payment method, happy to discuss, because I think, that's the space that we're going in as well. And as it grows, we're going to see continually new innovation, new change, and I'm just excited for the future in that regard.
Well, thanks everyone, and I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. We're all excited for the future. I hope you are too. Have a great day.